Hello and welcome to today's desk side chat session. I'm joined here by Daryl Rodriguez. Welcome, Daryl.
Thank you.
And we're going to be discussing the appointment booking feature of the walk-up experience application, part of the IT service management suite. So today's journey into the appointment scheduling feature of walk-up is going to start in the perspective of the employee. So employees interfacing with the walk-up when they want to schedule an appointment will be using the online check-in interface. So this screen we see here is the online check-in. And from this interface, employees gain information about the given tech lounge of interest. They can see an image of the location, description, the hours of operation, and importantly, they can see the current queue as well as the regular line and differentiated users that are in queue for an appointment alongside that appointment time. Now, if this employee wants to schedule an appointment themselves, they can click here to schedule an appointment. Now, new in Orlando, there is a feature to allow you to schedule an appointment for yourself or on behalf of someone else. But previous releases to Orlando, you won't see this. Who are you scheduling it for? It'll just be assumed that you're always scheduling it for myself or yourself. Now, the user selects a reason for visit similar to they would if they came on site to the tablet or if they came online through a mobile or desktop interface, and they're going to say they need something. They're then going to select the appointment icon, which will bring up an appointment picker. Now, we'll get into the details of how these slots are defined, but essentially, you can define the duration of the slots for your appointments, i.e. 30 minutes, 1 hour. You can define the capacity of each slot, i.e. 2 users can schedule 11 to 12 on Wednesday before it gets grayed out. And you could also define, since it's based on a schedule, any blackout period, such as if between 12 to 1, it's a lunch break, you never want anyone scheduling, but from 8 to 5, otherwise, you can schedule appointments. So we're going to select this 10 o'clock window. We'll go ahead and select, and we're going to click to schedule the appointment. Now, once I do this, I will get a confirmation modal here. I will see that my appointment is scheduled for an hour, Wednesday, December 4th, from 10 to 11 in U.S. Pacific. And if I head back to my regular queue screen, it'll give me a notification telling me I have this upcoming appointment. Now, it's important to note that on-site, the experience, if we were at the physical lounge, we will be able to differentiate visually users who have appointments by this calendar icon and the time of their appointment, aside from regular users who are just first in, first out. Now, that was how a user scheduled an appointment from the employee perspective. Keep in mind that this UI here in Service Portal for online check-in, it is mobile web responsive, meaning if I came here using a mobile device, then I can still access a lot of the same features. Granted, I will need to do more scrolling because of the real estate, but I will be able to make those same selections that I did from that desktop device. As an employee, once I scheduled an appointment, I also have the options to click to reschedule the appointment, or I can click to cancel the appointment entirely. Now, you can define, as we'll see later in the administration section, you can define if there's a window, a buffer, for when a user can schedule appointment, reschedule appointment, cancel appointment, and so on. One final consideration as well is the notifications. So prior to a user actually having their appointment coming up, there will be a scheduled notification that sends to them, reminding them of their appointment and giving them links they can click to either reschedule the appointment, cancel the appointment, or if no action is done, it'll be assumed that they are keeping that appointment. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to hand it over to Daryl to actually show how this appointment here actually shows up on the back end for the technicians, i.e., how do technicians pick up appointments? How do technicians know that there are appointments coming up. So over to you, Daryl, to share the screen.
Thank you, Darius. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so we are on the same instance, and the view that you guys can see right now is the workspace view. So the first thing that's going to happen is when our users have their regular check-ins, they appear in agent's inbox, as you can see here, and agent can from here on accept the work item and continue working on that interaction record from here. In case of appointment, we would see something similar. An inbox would appear in agent's inbox, but it would show up 2 minutes prior to the appointment start time. Now, 2 minutes is a configurable time that we define on walk-up location queue record. So let me go ahead and show that as well. So if we go into our queue record here, um, and in the management section, you would see something called as appointment routing time. We have it currently set it to 2 minutes, and therefore that specific appointment that Darius just scheduled would show up 2 minutes before the appointment start time in agent's inbox. Now, another way to look or find out the list of upcoming appointments for a specific location is to go into the modules under walk-up. You would find a module for appointments. When you click into that one, you will see a list of appointments here, which are in ready state. They are not currently being worked on. And we also have them categorized by the location here. One of the things that we recommend doing is for technicians to add a default filter, which will allow them to see the appointment specific to their location. So doing something like, I know that San Diego Tech Lounge has the address 4810 Eastgate Mall. I'm going to go ahead and update that. And now it only shows me 2 walk-up appointments, which are specific to my location that I need to work on. So that's from technician point of view, how things work and how they can work on walk-up appointments and distinguish them from regular interactions.
Excellent. Thanks, Daryl. So where we'll go now is look at the actual administration piece to understand how this specific piece was set up from a back-end perspective. So when we head back into the instance here, we're going to come back as a administrator user, and we're going to look at what we refer to as the walk-up location record. The table name is woo_location_queue. Now, on this record, so each walk-up you have, each distinct tech lounge or location, it has what we call this appointment booking reference. Yes. Now, this appointment booking reference is what actually drives all the appointment booking logic that renders in the little calendar widget, renders in the icon. First of all, you can define at a high level if you even want appointment booking to be enabled or disabled for a given location. So you could see that here on appointment booking, if this is left blank, then there is no appointment booking in place. Now, with the new Orlando feature that is coming in terms of scheduling appointments on behalf of other users, that's also something you could either enable or disable in Orlando and specify the specific group of users who are allowed to schedule appointments on behalf of other users. Now, here from the appointment booking reference here, we're going to open it up. And this record here called the appointment booking service configuration is really what contains the data and the configurations of what the appointment windows that are available, who it affects, what is actually available from a slot perspective, etc. So we'll talk through those now. So the first thing is that the entire window that you're allowed to schedule an appointment on is driven by the scheduling capability. So you define a schedule for when hours should be excluded from appointment availability. So this is commonly done for holidays, lunch breaks, if there's off set hours in your organization for your walk-ups and your appointments, such as Mondays are busy, you do 8 hours, but Fridays are not that busy, you do only 4 hours. You can define the holiday schedule in such a manner that every Friday there's a 4-hour holiday, and that'll exclude it from the regular list. Now, where the main scheduling comes from, though, is this daily schedule tab. So we could see here that there's this bookable days, which tells you what days can someone schedule an appointment, and you go ahead and you'll select those. You then say what the start time is as well as the end time. So 9 a.m. to, in this case, 4:30. And keep in mind, though, there's an exclusion based on the holiday schedule. So even though here you may have checked Saturday, Sunday, and you checked 9 through 4:30, if in the schedule you have Saturday, Sunday holiday, or you have a set hour exclusion, that'll overwrite and not allow users to schedule on that time frame. So you can start broad, start with your maximum hour duration here, and then you can narrow down and do exclusions through the holiday schedule you define here. Now, daily break is something that lets you add in very easily without having to rely on the schedule, a set window from which it will not allow appointments to be booked. So i.e. from 1 p.m., which will be 13, from 12 to 1, that could be when we have a daily break. And then we can visualize here in the preview what the available slots are. Right now it's this configuration. So we could see we have 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1 is a break, and then it continues 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4. You'll notice that while the end time's at 4:30, because those hour-long slots, as we'll see in a moment, it doesn't actually show up here. So when we get to the actual appointment tab here,
so yeah, under the appointment tab, as you can see, we have the appointment window. So that's really the length or duration of the appointment window. And you know, you always want to allow enough time for the work to be started and completed within this window. So keep that in mind. The other field that we see is work duration. So that's something that specifies the amount of time required to complete the task that is created by the record producer. And it's essentially used in calculating the availability of upcoming appointment slots, right? So by default, it is set to 1 hour. I believe you can just go ahead with appointment window configuration, and that should take care of that one. But if there is any issue, for example, Darius, can you go ahead and change that appointment window to 2 hour? It will probably give you some sort of validation error if you try to save that. There you go. So yeah, we do have those checks in place, and they will guide you throughout setting the appointments configuration. The next one that I want to talk about is booking. So that's another thing that we get a lot of questions on is appointments per window. So that's the number of available appointments for each configured appointment time slot. Meaning that if it's right now, as you can see, we have it configured to be 1, that means we only allow 1 appointment per window. No other user will be able to schedule appointment for the same window again. And this is something that totally depends from company to company, but we have it set it up as 1 here. Next is lead time. So that's the number of hours or days from the current time after which an appointment can be booked for this service. So by default, this one is set to 4 hours. But if you are all set up and ready to start accepting appointments from end users, you can make that a 0, and it will make the next immediate appointment slot available for users to book it. The next one we have is future bookable max days. So that's the number of days in advance of the current day for which appointment can be booked for this service. And again, the default is 14 days here. And simple words, that's basically you will see the appointment calendar, the model that Darius showed earlier for the next 14 days, not beyond that. And then reschedule or cancel by time, that's the number of hours or days prior to an appointment start time that are required for an appointment to be canceled or rescheduled. So in this case, it's set to 8 hours. So you will be able to cancel or reschedule your appointments 8 hours ahead of time. And I believe the default for that field is 4 hours. And then catalog information. So keep in mind that walkup uses the appointment booking configuration that comes from FSM. And as part of this one, we do use this particular config that we are looking at does use a catalog item. So the service in the catalog item is essentially used for booking the appointments, and it needs to be mapped to a catalog item record. So in this case, when you see SD walkup appointment, that's something you need to create and map it to your service configuration. One of the guidance that we give is to create a unique appointment booking service configuration for each of your queues. Technically, you can have the same service config shared between your queues, but then that's gonna be that you are sharing the same slots. So it's the same calendar that we shared between two queues, and that's a scenario that is not very likely. So we definitely would encourage you guys to create a separate service config record for each of your queues and map that here. The other field we have here is location. So that's the field on the record picker, record producer that determines the appointment location. We also have appointment is mandatory flag. So you need to enable this checkbox if it is mandatory that a customer creates an appointment when requesting this service. So for example, in case of walk-up, in our previous user interface that we saw, it will not let you submit the appointment if you haven't selected the appointment slot on the modal. And then we also have user contact. So that's the field on the record producer that determines who the appointment is being created for. This is a reference field that looks up sys user table on the record producer, for example, contact in this case. And then we have time zone. So that's the appointment location here. So basically the appointment slots that you see on the modal, those are using the location's time zone. And you also have the option to change that to user time zone.
I
So
think this feature was new on the Orlando. Is that right, Daryl, for the time zone definition?
yes, that is correct. This is new. Sorry, I forgot to mention that, but that's net new. We had a couple of time zone issues in previous releases, and so this was added for Orlando.
Awesome.
So I think that is all you really need from setting up perspective for appointments. And once you have all of these things set up correctly, you should continue to see your appointments working as expected. One thing I would like to add is from technical perspective, when you do create an appointment, it creates a record in a table called walk-up appointment, along with creation of an interaction record. So Darius, if you could please, yeah, perfect. So if you go to scheduled appointments, yes. So this is the table that walkup uses to keep track of all the appointments. And whenever an end user creates an appointment request, it will create a record here as well as in the interaction table. And from an interaction table, if a technician would like to gain insights as to whether the interaction is a appointment request or a regular check-in, we do have a field that allows you to read that. So if you can, yeah, open up that one, and then let's go ahead and look at the context record. Um, Context record is not added to the form view by default. You may need to configure that. And once you go in that one, as you can see, there is a field called appointment check-in. And it's basically a Boolean flag that indicates whether it's an appointment or not. So really, that's the end-to-end experience for setting up walk-up appointments and how our end users will experience it.